Shadow of the Beast. How many games can you name off the top of your head where you're the menacing monster ready to crush, crumble, and chop your way through all that stands before you? You've got the head of a goat, the snout of a wolf, and the speed of a cat, and you're very, very angry. The Beast Lord, Malatoth, made you his lapdog to serve his regime, but it was against your will. You want out of it. But having enough spine to stand up against the beast? Harder than you can possibly imagine. The awesome forces that await you being propped up by the Lords of Dark Magic. Shadow of the Beast is an action-adventure extravaganza. Originally developed by Reflections and published by Psygnosis in the year 1989. It was developed specifically for the Amiga, but within time, it found itself on every major home computer and some consoles outside of Europe. This video primarily features the Amiga and Mega Drive versions, but there are plenty of other versions out there that look identical to the Amiga original, like the FM Towns conversion. I want you to keep the year 1989 in mind throughout the video. Final Fight and Strider Hiryu were the prettiest looking games to grace arcades at that time. Beast is shockingly comparable to a high-end arcade game from that era. It is one of the most graphically impressive Amiga games, if not the nicest looking, not counting aftermarket demos or homebrew projects. All thanks to boundless creativity and technological expertise. Malatoth's minions come in many shapes and sizes, prowling the rotten world you're exploring. Hunched over, swelled-skinned lizardmen with crude jaws trample over broken fences and scattered stone. Marching alongside weirder inhabitants like bouncing eyeballs, demonic Pac-Men, and this adorable dino in a box that desperately wanted to ambush someone. Oh, but we're just getting started. If you think that's rich, wait until you meet the minions' screen-hogging superiors. Starting with the Pit Fiend, a feisty fire-breathing gargoyle. A blood-stained eldritch abomination only known as the Dracu Beast. The menacing Lobster Jaw, whose flesh melted and mutated into thick body armor. And let's not forget Hydrasass, the dragon who's all knotted up. All of whom make me drool over their large bodies, backed up by outstanding artworks. Presented to you in an unwavering, buttery smooth 50 frames per second. Yes, you heard me right. A game this graphically advanced for its time runs at a constant 50 frames per second. Even on older, less powerful hardware like the Amiga 500. It requires 2 discs if you're not playing on a home console, but for a game that looks this ahead of its time to not stutter at all, it must have taken some serious brain power to optimize the code that finely. A fact that the 2 programmers, Martin Edmund and Paul Howarth, are incredibly proud of as stated in the manual. Hats off to them for all their hard work because it ensured the controls would be snappy and responsive. Which is crucial considering what this game demands out of you. With the goal and the backdrop established, now we can talk about how Shadow of the Beast actually plays. Shadow of the Beast is a semi-linear side-scrolling platformer in which you have to fight and maneuver your way through several levels of tricks and treats. You'll need to search every nook and cranny of these accursed places to find items and power-ups necessary to proceed in your quest. But nobody said it was going to be easy! Your enemies do everything in their power to stop you, swooping in from the edges of the screen fast and hard. You'll often only have half a second to punch incoming enemies, making the average grunt a strenuous test of your reflexes, assuming you haven't memorized their locations. Speak of the devil, some patterns have to be memorized since there's no reacting to a spike trap skewing you from right underneath your feet. Your timing and positioning skills will also be scrutinized just as harshly, like these eyeballs bouncing up and down in place, with small gaps between them to squeeze through. There's no doubt about it, this is pure arcade action with bare-bones adventure elements to expand the levels beyond Run to the Right. which is probably why it tells you to go left at the beginning of the game. That would be useful for anyone that wasn't accustomed to larger game worlds yet. Aside from the usual keys and tools you'd expect to use in an adventure game, the upgrades you're looking for to complete the game are pretty danged cool. Beating the Pit Fiend lets you absorb his magical orb, which sets your hand on fire. It's satisfying enough that you feel like you're becoming stronger as time goes on, peaking when you pick up a gun at the very end of the game. At which point, the tables have turned and you're the one haplessly mowing down the monsters, making life considerably easier. It's wickedly satisfying after spending hours upon hours struggling to survive evil's wrath. You even get to take a break from the jumping and punching once you get your claws on the jetpack, blasting you off to the shoot 'em up level. It's nice to see a game mix itself up to keep itself feeling fresh after so long. It's not like the curveball's drastically different from what you've been doing most of the time anyway. You're still dodging and shooting stuff, but now you're able to move in all directions rather than being bound by the forces of gravity. I feel like that would be more welcome by most people compared to Battletoads, which changes the rules on every single level. Face your former master Malatoth, who's so big you are an ant crawling up his toes, and that's the game! It does the beast that it can do, and it's a wild ride all around. There are two major snafus that you should be aware of before you dive headfirst into Beast, though. First, soft blocks. Since exploration is prominent in Beast, you're allowed and expected to wander off into places in the wrong order. Not having the items necessary to defeat bosses or disarm traps will, predictably, make the game unwinnable. At least these losing conditions make sense, unlike this game's sequel. Not being powerful enough to rattle an ancient and powerful demon's bones is more believable than being too lazy to push a small rock to the left. And unlike most adventure games, Beast is nice enough to remind you to find items rather than leaving you in the dark entirely. There's a bright side to the semi-open nature of this Beast too. You can go to the castle early to learn the locations of all the traps faster. The developers probably didn't intend people to play the game like that, but going there early definitely saved me a bunch of time I would have wasted restarting otherwise. The second snafu is the one that would cause most people to raise an eyebrow. Beast's extremely high difficulty. You've likely already figured that out by watching the footage, but let me stress, this game is hard. You aren't going up against cute and cuddly critters. These are Roman lions that are ready to rip your throat out. The only way to tame them is by overcoming their fangs through patience or exceptional agility. While it's very possible for a human to react to most of these fiends, having only one life to finish the entire game isn't so humane. You make too many mistakes, or you quench the spike trap's thirst for blood, and you're doing it all over again. It's 100% padding to make the game longer than it actually is, which was common for short late 80s action games. The problem here is that you have to waste 19 minutes of your life beating bosses you already know how to beat just to get another shot at later sections you might have trouble with. It's archaic design that's been appended by emulator tools like save states. If you want to see every spectacle this game has to offer, but don't have the time for dozens of restarts, by all means, leave a few save states. They bring this game up to snuff with modern re-releases, which let you enjoy your favorite parts of the game, having fun on your own terms, and self-imposing a no-death challenge once you feel confident enough in your skills. We should be glad we game in a world where more people get to be monsters with a jetpack. I'm giving Shadow of the Beast 1 a rockin' A-. But if you have to use save states to fully appreciate it, go for it!